Welcome into the Inside Scoop. We are live from Nashville, Tennessee. Today is Wednesday, November 5th, and I'm your host, Josh Newberg. Another crazy weekend of college football ahead. There's another coach let go this week, so recruits are starting to look around. Rumors are swirling all over the country. We got a big show, lots to cover. It's going to be great, I promise you. But before we get into it, hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruits channel. This is the time of year when you want to be locked into the Rivals channel because it's recruiting 24/7, 365. Jump on board and hit subscribe. All right, so today we are covering Michigan flip targets. We got big visit weekends at Texas Tech and Alabama. But first, the race for number one. Here's a look at the top 10 rankings in America. Take a picture, take a screenshot, because these very well could change. We got 4 weeks until National Signing Day, and as you see it, USC currently sitting in that top spot, but nothing is guaranteed in recruiting. Well, chaos is guaranteed. That's one thing that we're going to see over the next 4 weeks. The race for number one is going to get interesting, and we're about to go behind the scenes here with national analyst Adam Gorney. Adam, USC, they're sitting at top. They have a total of 35 commitments. They've been piling them up. So even if they don't land another commitment between now and National Signing Day, could they still finish number one overall?
Yeah, there will be one more ranking cycle, which will sort of adjust some of these guys at the top, but there is still a very good chance for USC to hold off others. Now, I think we're going to get into this. There's going to be some flips. A lot of schools are still working on a lot of other guys, but USC has a very good chance. I was talking to Charles Power about this, has a very good chance of staying number one, especially after a late run. We thought they were done at 31 or 32. I had been told that they were still looking for a tight end and some defensive backs, and that's how it kind of played out. They flipped Josiah Jefferson, a JUCO tight end. They got a JUCO defensive back, and then they flipped Jaden Crowder from Cal to add to their class. Now, I think they're done. At 35, I think that's the limit. That's as far as you can go. But yeah, they have a very good chance of staying at number one and holding off some other big time programs here down the close.
Yeah, you mentioned that they have a good shot because they might land somebody, but what about playing some defense? I mean, hey, USC has some really talented commits on their roster right now. So do you think that teams are going to come after Luke Wafel, a Booby Feaster maybe? I mean, how much defense do you think USC is going to have to play down the stretch?
Yeah, there will have to be some, but I think it's different than in some other years, and that might sound naive, and we'll see a lot of changes down the stretch here. But you also have to remember, guys are sort of locked into NIL deals now. Like maybe paperwork hasn't been signed to that extent, and they can get out of some things. But there is definitely, and I've talked to some general managers about this, about early commitments, even in the 27 class, is kids and parents feel compelled to kind of honor their word, not only just the commitment word, but the word to NIL money. So some people are playing off, those numbers on other deals. Yeah. But I think a lot of kids sort of like their situation and where they go. There has been some concern, like, does Elbert Hill stick because he's from Ohio? But and USC fans, have known the struggle of late decommitments. But the high-end kids in the class, I've talked to Mark Bowman in recent weeks. He looks locked in. Kenny Pepe, Miami, tried to make a run at him. He looks locked in. Elbert Hill looks locked in. Wafel will be interesting. Feaster looks locked in. So I think USC should be fine. And while having to, recruit your own class is definitely a common thing in today's game, I think they should be okay down the stretch.
Yeah. And, NIL probably does help. You know what else helps? Winning. And that's what USC has been doing. They keep doing that down the stretch. They won't have to play much defense. All right. Who are the main teams, though? If anybody is going to knock off USC, who are the main teams you're watching right now that are in contention?
Yeah, I think there are four, but maybe really even three. Notre Dame is up there in the top five, but they don't have a lot of major targets left. Mm-hmm. They might go after a Penn State commit here or there. But I think Georgia, Oregon, Texas are the three to watch. Georgia could get interesting if they can kind of convince LaDainian Guyton. He's supposed to be back at Texas Tech this weekend to put the final touches on everything. But Georgia's not going to give up on an in-state kid, very talented, five-star guy until the end there. They're working on Tyreek Jemison. They're working on Elijah Littlejohn. So they still have some names. But I think Oregon, if things really fall into place, could be the team to watch. Now, a lot has to fall into place. First, Brian Hartline has to leave for a head coaching job, which isn't so out of the question. He's been mentioned as a top target at Penn State. Who knows what Pat Kraft and Ryan Day were talking about pregame last week, but that was definitely something to watch. But if they can flip Chris Henry and Caden Dixon-Wyatt, I think Dixon-Wyatt is probably the more of the likely of the two to flip. Mm-hmm. But if Hartline leaves, I mean, Chris Henry has told me multiple times, if Hartline leaves, things could get difficult, and he would even consider following Hartline to his next school. So that's definitely one to watch. There are definitely other names in there. LaMarcus Bell, who's a running back committed to Utah. Rajon Duncan is a cornerback committed to Washington. So that's definitely one to watch. And then Texas gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole lot of names that they're going after and a lot of flip targets that they could close in on the end, and they have room in their class to do it.
That go figure. Last year it was all about Naeem Offord and Dallas Wilson. Oregon always seems to be there at the end, and you never know what they can pull off, so we will definitely be keeping an eye on that. To wrap it up, we got 3-4 weeks left in this season. How important are these game visits? Because you and I have been covering recruiting for almost 20 years, and for decades almost, the season would end, and then you would get in-home visit season, right? The regular season would end at the end of November, and then you would have coaches hit the road. You would have, if you had a 5-star recruit, he would probably get 3 to 4 in-home visits. He would have the position coach come by once a week, and then at some point, the head coach is going to come in for his one visit. Well, signing day is December 3rd now. Those visits are out the window. I mean, you used to be able to, say you had a losing season. The recruits would watch it, but then you'd have 3 or 4 weeks to go in their house, sit on their couch, and have them forget about what they saw on the field. Now that's all gone. So do you think that these visits that we talk about, so-and-so showing up, from September until now, maybe not really matter so much, but now moving forward, it seems like it's everything. Inside Scoop listeners, it's time that we talk game time because the NFL season is underway. It's almost halfway over at this point, and who doesn't love to see their favorite NFL team live and in person, especially when you can go with a bunch of good buddies. But the problem is tickets aren't easy to find, and getting last-minute deals on tickets can be frustrating when all you want to do is be there for the moment your team runs out onto the field. Well, thankfully, the Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing ticket experiences. It only takes a few simple clicks. The Game Time app, it's easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means you can trust that you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Plus, fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay. You can even get NFL games as low as $100. That's why I use the Game Time app. It's super simple, and it makes the experience of buying great seats a breeze. Also, one of the coolest features I've seen is the Game Time lowest price guarantee. It's where Game Time will credit you 100% of the difference to guarantee you're getting the lowest price if you find cheaper tickets elsewhere. All right, here's what we're going to do. You're going to download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code INSIDESCOOP. That's promo code INSIDESCOOP for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's Inside Scoop for $20 off Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
I was always so mad about those in-home visits though, because the Christmas tree setup was so much nicer than mine, and I just got upset about that when I saw all the kids. I think in-home visits were very important because you could do so much sitting in some guy's living room than you can being as a coach being pulled 20 different ways, pre-game, post-game. Everybody wants to talk to you. There's just so much going on. You could actually sit down and build relationships. That's where Kirby Smart was so awesome. That's where Nick Saban did his closing. That's where those guys kind of got in those living rooms and started doing the shuffle dance and all those things. that
we saw that
famous over the years. That has made it. What we're looking at this year is the coaching carousel being so crazy. That's going to sort of make all of these flips happen instead of in-home visits. Game day visits, that's a nice thing. The kid gets there, he eats, he goes to the game, he loves it. He kind of gets home. I think those are a little overrated. But with Florida open, with LSU open, with Auburn open, with others coming open, with Penn State open, and even like an Oklahoma State, there are going to be so many dominoes from guys going from other jobs to that job and taking guys to fill out staffs. And we all know this. Head coach is important. Position coach is everything. So many
Right.
guys have the relationships with the position coaches. Those guys are going to be going to new staffs. That's where we're going to see a lot of the drama. Maybe kids not signing because of the early signing period. Maybe them making snap decisions and going somewhere where they're a little bit more comfortable. But it's going to be a great 4 weeks. It always is.
Yeah, and these visits take on even more importance down the stretch. Adam Gorney, thank you. And you guys, hey, chime in here. Do you think the Trojans are going to finish number one, or do you think it's going to be another team? Who finishes number one? Let us know. Comment section below. Let's talk some Michigan recruiting because the Wolverines are currently having an outstanding 2026 recruiting cycle, and they're not done. Currently sitting at number 10 in the industry rankings, Michigan, they have a chance through some flips to add to this class, potentially pushing to a top 5 finish. You know, they got Savion Hyder, they got Carter Meadows, but today in this video, we got Greg Smith, and we are going to go over a couple major flip targets down the stretch. Before we do that, Michigan fans, do me a favor real quick and hit subscribe to this Rivals Recruits channel because we are busy talking Michigan recruiting down the stretch. It's going to be fun. It is already heating up. Jump on board, hit subscribe. All right, let's bring in national analyst here at Rivals, Greg Smith, and we talked about some of the great players like Savion Hyder and Carter Meadows, but right now there's a couple needs still left, specifically at linebacker, and Michigan is on the hunt for some 2026 flips. Who are you watching, Greg?
Yeah, it's really interesting. This has been an interesting year for Michigan, like you laid out. They're having a great class, number 10 class in the country right now. But they stayed involved with Georgia commit Nick Abrams. I don't think they'll give up there, but it does look like he's going to stick with Georgia. New Oregon commit Braylon Hodge was also a guy that they were heavily interested in and hosted him for an official visit before he picked Oregon. So we know that they're on the hunt for flips specifically at linebacker, but I do have my eye on a couple of guys that I think that they're, standing in pretty good position with. Aiden Reeder was a Wisconsin commit up until this past weekend where he took an official visit to Michigan, and then he promptly decommitted after taking that official visit to Michigan. And, like I think I said on the show last time, follow the visits, right? And so we know then the Michigan stands in a really good position with him. I expect them to get good news from Reeder as early as later on this week. I also think that there's another player out of the state of Michigan to keep an eye on that they, offered on Tuesday afternoon, pick commit Marcus Jennings. Michigan has a really interesting relationship with these pick commitments. They did it last year with Elijah Dotson, where they offered him later in the cycle, the defensive back, and flipped him. They're looking to do the same thing again with Marcus Jennings. And so we'll see if they could do it. He was actually kind of pro-Pitt when I talked to him yesterday, but then it turns out that he popped up on a visit, like an unofficial visit at Michigan yesterday. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. USF commit Caden Ketchens was also on campus for an official visit, a linebacker over the weekend. So yeah, it feels like a matter of who, not if they'll be able to flip a linebacker to close this cycle.
All right. So we know linebacker. We've kind of covered that this whole cycle on this channel about Michigan trying to add another linebacker, but they're also trying to add another defensive back. Do you see any flip targets in the defensive secondary?
Yeah, there's definitely a couple that I've been watching there. Danny Odom is a Nebraska commit out of Florida who it seems like has been circled by a lot of schools. There have been many schools that have been trying to poke around there and move him off of that commitment to Nebraska. Nebraska is well aware of that, and they're trying to keep him in the fold. But I think that Michigan is a team that has done a really nice job behind the scenes with him. They're trying to get him on campus like a lot of these kids for that big game against Ohio State. That's the game that we're going to really look to see if they can get some of those guys on campus there. And then, we, as you talked about before, I'm sure, and we've talked about kind of on the site, keeping an eye on these teams that have had coaching changes, right? And LSU is at the top of that list with four-star California defensive back Haven Finney. Michigan had already kind of been involved there with him before that coaching change. And now that kind of their situation is in flux, he's another guy that Michigan would love to be able to poach and add to that class.
All right. So it seems like the focus should be on 2026 solely right now because signing day is just about a month away, but we are fully involved in 2027. I mean, Michigan already has their star quarterback, Peter Bork, on board, committed, recruiting for Michigan. Who else right now is Michigan in good shape for when it comes to this 2027 class?
Yeah, it's a perfect year for Michigan to be looking ahead to 2027 because in the state, it lines up beautifully. It couldn't really be any better. Dakota Garand is a wide receiver who's one of the most elite prospects in the entire country, regardless of position. And he's been to Michigan several times. And his dad told me recently that Michigan is going to be in this until the end. That's home. So we'll see how that plays out. Four-star edge, Ricardo Kitchen is right there in the state. And I think that Michigan eventually gets him as well. Anthony Cartwright is a four-star tight end in Michigan that they're in a really good position for as well. And then when you go just a little bit away and go down to Chicago, Quentin Burrell, a four-star wide receiver out of Mount Carmel, that powerhouse down there in Illinois and Chicago. He's a kid that's really high on Michigan. He's got a sister on the soccer team. He's been there several times. Now Michigan is going to have to battle Notre Dame, who is the other top contender, I think, at this point. But no, Michigan is well ahead on that 27 group, and if they just nail these kids down that are in the region, they'll end up doing a very good job. And we'll be talking about this Michigan 27 class quite a bit over the next year.
Yeah, some big time names emerging on the board for 2027. Greg Smith, appreciate you dropping by the Inside Scoop today, talking a little Michigan recruiting.
Hey, thanks for having me, Josh.
Let's talk some Alabama recruiting because Bama has a chance to make a statement this weekend, and I'm not talking about just by beating SEC rival LSU. They also have a chance to win over some top recruits. We got Bama Online insider Tim Watts here. We're going to talk a little five-star recruiting with him. But before we do that, Bama fans, do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, the Rivals Recruits channel, of course. All right. Let's bring in Bama Online's Tim Watts, and we're going to get to some of these 2027 headliners that are on campus. But first, there's an official visitor, wide receiver Samson Gash. He's coming in from Detroit. As I said, Alabama bringing him in on an OV. So how big of a priority is Gash?
I mean, to bring an official visitor in this late, I think he's definitely a priority. And one of the things you can be sure that he's a guy, and not by priority, I mean, Bama wants to get to know him. They haven't seen him since the summer. They did offer him, and this is a guy with like a 10-4, 100 meter. That's going to stand out to the Alabama staff who looks for size, looks for speed. He fits in there. So I think this is more of a follow-up to everything they had this summer from the offer. They had commitment, so kind of got full. So they bring him in, get to know him, see how he fits with the room. But obviously a really big visit for both sides. He's committed to Michigan State, but he's got some speed that Alabama likes.
All right, so I mentioned that the five stars are on campus. Most of them are committed to Alabama already. How big is it to see this group of five-star commits on campus almost every weekend in Tuscaloosa?
They've been extremely consistent. Jaira Edwards, it's his first time coming in a while. He lives in Baltimore, plays for St. Francis. His schedule's a little bit different, but Jordan Edmonds, Cedarian Morgan, Xavier Griffin have all five stars have been there consistently. Xavier Crowell should be in that five-star discussion. He's been a regular one, too, after reclassifying.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's move to this group of 2027s. Tim, who are the headliners that you're keeping an eye on?
I think Elijah Haven's the main one right out of the gate. He's a quarterback. He's ranked the #1 composite quarterback in the nation, top 30 overall. He's from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They already have a quarterback commitment, but now there's a coaching change, so that dynamics could change a good bit. We'll see how that shakes out when they get a coach. But he's a guy that came a couple of weeks ago, got a lot of positive feedback from his visit. Mm-hmm. Steve Wiltfong, Andrew Bone, myself, we all had really strong vibes that he really loved Alabama. Sam Spiegelman as well. So it wasn't just one source, it was several. But big name coming in. They already have Trent Seaborn committed, the local kid from Thompson High School. He's a four-star guy. But they're aware they might take two quarterbacks, so there's not a surprise there.
Right. And Elijah Haven out of Baton Rouge was trending heavily, not to LSU, but to the Gators. Steve Wiltfong was on this channel earlier this season saying that he thought Elijah Haven was maybe going to commit to UF earlier in the season, but the stuff with Billy Napier started happening. Obviously, he's out, and now it seems like Bama is the one trending for the Baton Rouge standout. And I'm looking at some of these 2027 names on campus, and it looks like Alabama is trying to capitalize on an LSU team that is limping in with no head coach, and Bama's bringing in all the top prospects from the state of Louisiana. You mentioned number one quarterback Elijah Haven. Well, number one offensive lineman Albert Simeon's going to also be on campus. He's out of that state. Number one tight end Ahmad Hudson. Number one edge Zyron Forstall, also going to be in Tuscaloosa, all from Louisiana. Tim, obviously, they're trying to get traction with some of these top guys. Who stands out to you that you think Bama could come out of the weekend looking really good for? Inside Scoop listeners, let's talk Whataburger. As you know, we are the proud presenters of the Whataburger Tailgate Tour. They've been making their way across the country, and if you're ever out at a game and you see that truck, make sure to drop by during your tailgate. Get ready to bring home the W early with a hot, fresh Whataburger in hand. And, you know, no matter who comes out on top, when you take your team to Whataburger, you know you'll feel like a winner with food made fresh and hot every time, 24/7. We'll see you at the game, and we'll see you at Whataburger.
Well, I think one thing to factor in is they are playing LSU, and a lot of these visits were scheduled before the coaching change. I mean, there's kids from Louisiana. Sure. They do a good job of keeping them home. This has always been an extremely popular game. Back to Tim Tebow, Alabama LSU's always been a popular game because of the rivalry. But yeah, they're bringing in some guys. I mean, I think with the LSU, the players from the state of Louisiana, there's a big hold on what happens with their coaching search. I mean, do they get a guy they like? Do they get a guy that relates to them? How, you know, and again, it's 27, so it's not too late in the process, like 2026, to get to know some of these guys. So I think Haven is the biggest name right now, but again, I just think a lot of this has a lot of variables to it. There's just a lot of unknowns, but it's good getting them on campus. Alabama, Courtney Morgan does a great job of hosting players. Kalen DeBoer, they do a great job, know how to party with these kids, so to speak, and they get them on campus. The parents have a good time. The players have a good time. So they definitely, that's a good first step.
All right. Well, it's going to be a fun weekend in Tuscaloosa regardless. A lot of recruiting going on. Bama Online is your place to go all weekend. Constant updates. I love it. Tim Watts, we will probably bring you in on Sunday to talk about not only a big Bama win, but also what the Tide did in recruiting. Appreciate you stopping by today on the Inside Scoop. Let's talk Texas Tech recruiting, because the biggest game of the slate this weekend will be played in Lubbock as number 8 Texas Tech hosts number 7 BYU in a game with major college football playoff implications. What a setup for Week 11. We're going to talk a little Texas Tech recruiting as they continue to push. We're going to break down what could be another big weekend for the Red Raiders. Before we get going, though, make sure you guys hit subscribe. We love talking Texas Tech recruiting. We want you guys to be a part of it. Hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruits channel. All right, we are going to do this with national analyst Sam Spiegelman. Sam, before we get to some of the huge 2027 names on campus this weekend, the Red Raiders are not done in 2026. You are reporting flip targets on campus, and there's 2 big ones coming to Lubbock this weekend. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's a name you've heard on the Inside Scoop a couple of times. That's Rivals 300 Edge. KJ Ford is expected to make the trip to Lubbock. Texas Tech was not a contender for KJ Ford leading into his senior season. This is his first time visiting Lubbock. He is close friends and trains with 5-star defensive lineman Jalen Brewster, who will, of course, be back in town, is one of the faces of their 2027 recruiting class. Texas Tech will also bring back a familiar face, London Smith, the longtime Baylor commitment out of Waco. He has been to Lubbock a few times this year. He is set to return this weekend. Texas Tech has not stopped recruiting London Smith, who just eclipsed 3,000 yards career receiving for Waco University High School there. And they are trying to dig out the spatula with the Baylor commit from Waco.
Yeah, and we've seen Baylor commits taking some visits around the country. But let's talk a little KJ Ford first. Is Texas A&M – I know it's kind of been up for debate whether or not the Aggies are going to push here. Who is the biggest competition to flip KJ Ford? Is it Texas Tech versus UF here?
We'll see. USC is set to get him on campus later this month when UCLA comes to town. USC was one of the prominent contenders with KJ Ford. Before the summer, he ended up switching out his USC official visit and went to Ohio State last. But really, Texas A&M is another team. They've also hosted him 2 times this past season. They're kicking the tires, according to some sources over it.
You wouldn't say that he's a priority right now, would you? Just kind of being kept warm, maybe?
That's a perfect way to put it. They are showing interest. The interest is certainly increasing now that we're into November and National Signing Day is 1 month away. But right now, I'm looking at USC and I'm keeping tabs on Texas Tech going into this weekend.
All right, so we'll see 2 big flip targets on campus. Now, this 2026 class is headlined by 5-star edge Damian Guyton, but who else on this Texas Tech commit list do you really like?
I mean, how do you not like Felix Ojo, the 5-star offensive tackle, coveted by schools like Texas and Ohio State before Texas Tech came in and won this recruitment? Felix Ojo had a fantastic junior season. And then, Josh, we got to see him in San Antonio where he took a massive step forward and, grabbed the attention of guys like Cody Belair and Charles Power with a fantastic performance with seniors at the All-American Bowl in San Antonio. I think he's done nothing but take his game to another level as a senior. He's been absolutely stellar as the anchor of the offensive line out there at Mansfield Lake Ridge. He's someone that expects to play really soon in Lubbock, and I think will be a prominent member of that starting lineup when they're competing again next season.
All right. Well, let's get to these big-time 2027 names as the Red Raiders are loading up. You mentioned Jalen Brewster. Kavian Bryant committed, the number 1 quarterback on the Rivals rankings. He committed to the Red Raiders on Saturday, and now there's another number 1 on campus, number 1 corner, John Meredith. Where did the Red Raiders stand with this number 1 prospect? Inside Scoop listeners, it's time to talk Roebuck. And there's only one way to describe Roebuck. It's best fit, best feel. And for those who aren't familiar with Roebuck, they are completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable activewear. Roebuck has released my favorite with their new licensed game day collection. It is now our favorite. They have polo designs, clean hoodies, quarter zips, and really it goes with all your favorite team schools. It's definitely worth checking out. Nobody else on the market is pairing these level of custom designs with this quality of activewear. Roebuck's everyday shorts or their Delta Performance pants are the perfect pairing as well. They're both super comfortable. I have them. They have an elastic waistband, a great fabric that is made to have the appearance of a nice looking short, but they are comfortable for a day on the move. Roebuck has also proudly been leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with multiple college football stars, past and present, and are becoming the go-to brand for college athletes across the country. So here's what we're going to do. Use promo code Josh on Roebuck.com for a generous 20% off all new customers through the end of this week. That's RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with promo code Josh.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting visit, a very important visit. This is his first visit to campus, his first game day in West Texas. He's coming off a visit to Ohio State. He's been on campus at Texas A&M, at Penn State, and Alabama. But Texas Tech, along with schools like Miami and SMU and LSU, are continuing to keep John Meredith in their loop. They're trying to make a case that we are in this recruitment and we hope to get an official visit down the line. Texas A&M has done terrific work with John Meredith, the number 1 cornerback in the country, and that Alabama visit last month also moved the needle tremendously. But he's been keeping an eye on this Texas Tech secondary and has raved about what Joey McGuire and the staff have done. This could be the visit that launches Texas Tech into the mix with a number 1 cornerback in the country.
All right, trending up already without him even stepping on campus. All right, number 10 ranked wide receiver Julian Caldwell is going to be on campus. Who else are you watching this week? Who else intrigues you that's going to be in Lubbock?
Yeah, Julian Caldwell certainly intrigues me. This is his second visit in 3 weeks back to West Texas, and he called Texas Tech one of the hottest teams in college football a couple of weeks ago. They're also going to bring back blue chip defensive lineman Zane Rowe out of Denton Guyer. He was on campus in September. Texas Tech took a massive step forward with Zane Rowe as well. They're going to get Jerry Outhouse, a top 10 cornerback in the country, on campus. And they're also going to have Peyton Miller, a 4-star offensive lineman. We talked about Felix Ojo being the anchor of that 2026 class. the Red Raiders have just started to get going with the offensive line in 2027, and Peyton Miller is one of Joey McGuire and James Blanchard's favorite up front in 2027.
Yeah, 2026 coming to an end in just about a month. 2027 is here. We're already talking about it. And you guys talk to us in the comment section below. How are you guys feeling about these flip targets coming to campus? And also this 2027 class, how good can it get? Talk to us, comment section below.